Today we're going to talk about the cost of the Colonial Pipeline Cyber Attack. It's been reported that on or about May 6th, the hacker network known as DarkSide had successfully deployed a ransomware attack on the computer networks at Colonial Pipeline Company in Georgia. Out of an abundance of caution, the company shut down its pipeline out of concerns that while its data was locked down and held hostage, that there could be consequential events that could lead to a fuel spill or other catastrophic event. Ransomware, as you've probably already read or heard, is a form of malware or a virus, which is introduced to a computer network that locks down an organization's network. Once deployed, users are unable to access their systems or operate them until the ransom is paid to the hackers, usually in the form of bitcoins or some other untraceable cryptocurrency. Once the ransom is paid, the hackers provide a key or a code to unlock the company's data. Unfortunately, this works only about 65% of the time to restore all the data. The initial attack vector or method by which hacker DarkSide infiltrated Colonial Pipeline is unknown. It may have been through an unpatched vulnerability in their systems, a phishing email where an employee unsuspectingly clicked a link that exploded the virus, or some other method by which cyber criminals use to obtain access to corporate networks. Regardless of how the malware was introduced into Colonial's system, the big news yesterday, May 13th, was that the company paid nearly $5 million to DarkSide for the keys to unlock their data. Now, the word nearly or almost, which was used in news broadcasts, may have seemed weird, but that was because the sum paid was actually 75 bitcoins, which as of yesterday was about $5 million. But the $5 million ransom payment headline, though, really doesn't do justice to the total cost of this event, and that's the focus of this video. I tried to find the annual revenues for Colonial, but as a private company, they aren't compelled to file any sort of public disclosure notices. But the common number I found online pointed to a total annual revenue of about $1.4 billion. Whether that's accurate or not isn't really necessary, but for the moment, assume it is. We do know that the company is owned by 5 partners, and 2 of those partners have very recognizable names. One is KKR, Kohlberg, Kravis & Roberts, the mammoth private equity firm, and the other is Koch Industries. So Colonial is going to be big to have owners like these. So assuming that the $1.4 billion revenue number is correct, that means that the daily revenue figure is around $3.8 million. If company operations are shut for a week, that means the loss of business income Colonial may have suffered is around $27 million. That's more than 5 times the ransom paid, and it didn't get any headline ink. Other unknown numbers will be the cost for forensic experts to comb through all the data to make sure there's no other ticking time bombs in it that'll later launch another cyber attack, public relations and crisis management costs deployed during the shutdown and ongoing for the coming weeks to deal with news outlets and government regulators that'll want to dive into Colonial's operations relative to security and redundancy, loss of productivity from company management as they recover from the event and deal with the fallout, the cost to replace damaged hardware or software that may have led to the vulnerability, and finally, even though the systems are back online as of yesterday, it's not expected to be in full production for several days, thereby further impacting not only the flow of fuel, but also the flow of revenue. And it all adds up, and the total loss suffered is probably going to approach $40 million, in my estimation. Did Colonial have cyber insurance? We don't know, but we'd have to assume that they did. And if they did, most of these costs we're talking about here would be covered by most cyber policies. The question, of course, is, did they have enough cyber insurance? And that's the big issue today, when you realize the broad scope of the cost a cyber event will have on a company. Now, to bring this down to the SMB marketplace, let's shave off a 0 or 2 from the fact pattern we just talked about. Assuming you're a firm with $140 million of revenue, how would a $4 million claim impact your year or your owner's pockets? Or you're a firm with only $1.4 million in revenue. How would a $40,000 claim affect you and your owners? Here's the bottom line. Cyber claims are expensive. The headlines in this example of Colonial focus just on the ransom payment, but that $5 million may be a small fraction of the cost that the company or any company will suffer in a ransomware attack or some other cyber attack. This means that having the right type of cyber cover and the right limits are critical to your firm's survival. The top 3 industries being targeted by cyber criminals today: finance, manufacturing, and energy. If you're not confident that you have the right protection, give me a call. Let's talk about it. We can review what you've done in the past and how you're currently structuring your protection and identifying what your peer group is doing with benchmarking. I work with firms of all sizes, from startups to larger mid-market firms, and my priority is to give you greater confidence and peace of mind in your insurance and risk protection strategies. Thanks.